Welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy, such as the Deferred Sales Trust, is the best way for you to exit your business or real estate. I'm your host, Brett Swarts, and each episode I am joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, and business and mergers and acquisition minds in the world, where they share their ideas, deal stories, and inspiration. So together we can make complex tax deferral strategies simple and passive income plans achievable. I'm excited about our next guest. She's the leading authority in mergers and acquisitions and author of Exit Rich, which is set to be released here soon. And the book is all about the method to sell your business for huge profit. She has 20 plus years of experience and closed 500 plus businesses and has a 98% closing rate, up to 40% higher for selling prices, selling near appraised values. We're going to dive all into that right now with Michelle Seiler Tucker. How you doing, Michelle?
I'm great, Brett. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Yes, I'm excited to dive in. Would you give our listeners a little bit more about your background and your current focus?
Sure. So I think I've always been an entrepreneur at heart. I started businesses when I was young, but then I kind of got, sucked into corporate America. I went to work at Xerox, making six figures with a great benefits. And very quickly at Xerox, my nickname was a closer. So every time somebody couldn't close a deal, they would bring me in to close the deal. And I was really good at negotiations. But 6 months later, my manager came to me and she said, Michelle, you really should interview for the regional manager overseeing 85 salespeople. And I said, okay. She said, you'll never get it, but you should do it. I'm like, why should I interview for something I'm never going to get? And she says, because you'll learn so much from the experience. It was like a 3 month experience. It was like a 3 month interview process where you had to meet all the high level executives, and it was pretty intense. And she says, you should just do it for the experience. And I said, okay, I'll do it. So anyway, I did it for 3 months and competed against my peers who have been at Xerox for decades. And I ended up getting it actually, and they picked me. And then, all of my friends at Xerox hated me because I beat them out of the job. So every time we're in the lunchroom, I would go to sit at their table and they would all move and part like the Red Sea. It was like Mean Girls at high school. I'm like, oh my gosh, be happy for me. So anyway, I pretty much lost all my friends at Xerox, but I did that for a while. But I really missed owning businesses. So I stumbled across a franchise. I had a couple locations, and my husband knew one of the owners. And I said, well, maybe, so I approached him about buying their franchise. And I said, we know of you and we know of your reputation. We don't want you to buy a franchise. We want you to partner with us and help us sell franchises, and then we'll give you one. And I said, well, you have two locations. I don't think I'm going to give up my six-figure position with great benefits for a company that's not really successful. Why don't we try it for 6 months and see what happens? And I'll keep my day job. So I did that. So I flew all over the country, weekends, and I had held my own events. Within 6 months, I made more money than I made at Xerox. I think I made like $300,000 in those 6 months. So I said, you know what? I think this is a good time to leave Xerox. So I was in that position for 6 months. And then everybody was even more upset with me because I beat them out of the job and then I didn't keep the job. And so then I went into franchise sales, franchise consulting, franchise development. And they did, I'm sorry, Brett, they did what a lot of business owners do. They market, grow the company, and they don't build a foundation. And that's what they didn't do. So I sold so many franchises, they just couldn't keep up. And they were over promising, under delivering, and it was a mess. And these franchisees were my friends. I went to their weddings. I went to the hospitals when they had babies. I was at their birthday party. I stayed at their house when I would come into town. And so, I was really fighting for them. So it became very adversarial, this partnership, because I was fighting for the franchisees, and the franchisors were very upset with me because they thought I should be on their side. No, I'm going to be on the client side every time. So I ended up having them buy me out. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do next? And that's kind of when I transitioned into selling companies. And I started selling, coffee shops, restaurants, daycares. But then I learned very quickly that 8 out of 10 businesses don't sell. So that's when I started fixing them, growing them. And then I transitioned into selling much bigger companies, typically $10 million and up. And that's, at any given time I own 5 to 10 companies. Right now I have companies in medical, I have companies in graphics, I've had technology, publishing, event companies. I've been in a lot of different industries. So that's my
Fantastic.
story.
Beautiful story. Amazing. So much there you were going. And I just
Yeah.
wanted you to finish that last point, which is fantastic. So, wow. So you're sort of like, I think of like the profit doctor, like the business doctor, right? And so corporate America to entrepreneur, to a franchise owner, to business broker, to bigger, larger mergers and acquisitions. I can't wait to dive into some more of those details and glean some wisdom from you. But in the meantime, I want to take one step back. Okay, Michelle, I want you to go back perhaps to the time when before the Xerox days. It could have been the college days, could have been the high school days. I believe we've all been given certain gifts, Michelle, in this life. And these gifts, I believe, are God given gifts, but some people call them superpowers.
Mm.
And these gifts are given to us so that we can be a blessing and a help to others. So I'm curious, what is that gift, maybe one or two gifts that you believe you were given, and how does
Okay.
that help how you help people today?
Okay. One thing I want to say before I get there, I love how you said the business doctors because I actually do have that domain and that is one of my companies.
Love it.
So I think my gifts, as a child, I didn't play with toys. I didn't play with dolls. I was quite unusual. I would walk around with a notebook and a pen, and it didn't matter where we went in church, school, grocery store, restaurants. I would approach strangers and I would ask them a million questions. And I was always so curious. I wanted to know everything about that person. And my mom always thought I was going to be the next Barbara Walters. And so I really love writing. I think my two gifts are people. I'm so interested in people, what makes them tick, what's their interest, what's their hot buttons, why are they successful, why are they not successful. I'm so interested in people. I'm like, a kid in a candy store when it comes to business. So I think, really listening and really figuring out what people want is my special gift. I think that's why people call me at Xerox the closer because, you can't close somebody on something unless you really know that person and what their wants and needs are. And then I think my other special gift is writing. I've always been into writing as a child. I used to write stories, I used to write poems, I've written lyrics, and now I write books. And I've written 3 books now, and every book I've written in basically 6 weeks. Exit Rich is 325 pages. I wrote it in 6 weeks. So I
Wow,
think those are my special gifts. And just,
those are beautiful gifts. So curiosity, people, asking questions, being inquisitive, figuring out what people want. I want to laser focus in on that
mhm.
because I think that might be overlooked. So what's the best secret, Michelle, to uncovering what people really want?
I think it's really asking the right questions. And they always say the you can tell how intelligent a person is by the questions they ask. And I think it's by asking a lot of questions and really listening. So many people ask questions, but then they don't really listen. And you know, you go through like people who have been with me on sales calls, meeting with buyers and sellers. I never have a pitch. It's never a pitch. It's always really getting to know that person, really getting to know their company, really getting to know their struggles, their wins, their challenges, and then just asking the right questions to really get down to what that person really wants. And a lot of times, they don't know what they want. You have to help them figure it out. And I learned that a long time ago when I used to teach Dale Carnegie that you got to figure that out. You got to help them figure that out for them because how many times do people not know what they want and they can't make a decision? You got to help them figure that out and help them make the decision for them.
Excellent. So asking the right questions, right? And never not going in with, I guess, a predetermined pitch or solution because you don't know yet,
Right.
and truly getting to know their challenges, their wants, their how they've been successful, what have been their challenges, what have been things that have why are they selling, why are you even in this position, right? Understanding their motivations, um, and then perhaps offering or helping them figure out or uncover what they really want. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. I mean, and there's been times where I've helped business owners figure out that they don't want to sell their business, and that's okay, because I would rather help them figure out that they don't want to sell versus going through a year or 2 years trying to sell when all they're going to do is back out because of seller's remorse.
Very
Yeah.
well said. Right. If the motivation is not there, then when it comes down to the, let's say, the brass tacks or the end of the deal, right?
Right.
They probably won't deal, right? They probably won't deal, and now you've wasted perhaps their time, your time, and the buyer's
Right.
time. And as mergers and acquisitions and business brokers, tell me if I'm wrong, but not getting paid unless the deal closes,
Yes,
right?
I mean a lot of M&A. So I'm a mergers and acquisitions master intermediary, and you can't just take a test to get that or take a college course. You have to prove yourself by selling so many businesses over $10 million range. So many brokers don't have that title. I have that title because of our track record. Um, but yes, many M&A advisors and business brokers charge retainer fees. I don't charge retainer fees. I've never charged a retainer fee because I'm results driven. I'm a salesperson. I'm a closer. I'm going to get this deal done. As long as I have your seller's sanity check down, and I know we can meet that, and I've planned your beginning strategy, because I will never help you plan your exit unless we help plan your beginning.
So well said, and I appreciate that. We likewise we work the same way. We don't we say, hey, look, no charge, no obligation. For whatever reason, the deal doesn't work out, we don't deliver. Like you don't owe us
Yeah.
anything. Like we have to actually produce the result of tax deferral and what we call a transformational exit planning. And if we can do that, then we'll get paid. Otherwise, don't pay us.
And that's great. And
Um,
you and I should have a
so
conversation about that. How you can work with me and my clients. But so many advisors, there's a group out there. I'm not going to say who it is, of course, but they charge about 60,000 to $100,000 retainer fee. And they actually called me 6 months ago and asked me if I could close their deals for them because they couldn't get anybody to close deals. They're really good at getting that retainer fee, but they're really bad at closing deals. Yeah.
yep, it takes a team, and hopefully evidence and the results speak for themselves, and that's what we focus on as well. So I think we would get along great. That being said, what's the most rewarding part of what you do?
So I think, there's two sides. Well, there's three sides to what I do. Um, it's very rewarding to help a seller sell their legacy and transfer it into good hands that they feel comfortable with, that are, because the seller sanity check is not just about what you're going to walk away with or how much you need a month or how much you need a year. Sometimes that's number three, four, five, or six on a seller's list. A lot of times, number one on a seller's list is taking care of their employees, taking care of their clients, growing their legacy. So it's very rewarding to me when I can make that match, a buyer and seller, where that seller feels really confident in being able to transfer their legacy to somebody they're very comfortable with, that's going to grow it and take care of what they built and not ruin it. So that's very rewarding. On the flip side, um, there's five different types of buyers, and we talk about that in my book, and Exit Rich. But it's very rewarding, and I don't work with a lot of first-time buyers anymore. My firm does, um, but it's very rewarding to help a buyer leave corporate America, like I left corporate America, and buy a business. We had a lady, first-time buyer, who called us about buying a restaurant, and she had been in banking for 30 years, very close to retirement. And she wanted to buy a restaurant. And she says, I have $350,000 in my retirement fund, and I can redirect that and purchase a business without paying taxes and penalties. I'm willing to put down 300. I want to keep 50. I want a restaurant. I'm like, why do you want a restaurant? Do you have restaurant experience? Have you worked in a restaurant? Is anybody you know worked in a restaurant? She goes, no, but I think that's easy. And I'm like, No. That's like one of the worst things that you can get into is a restaurant. So I ended up and I asked her, why do you want to own a business when you're so close to retirement? She said, Michelle, I've been in banking for 30 years. I make about 130,000 a year. That's my best year ever. After being in here for 30 years, my husband was in the military, contracted Agent Orange. He's outlived every doctor's diagnosis, prognosis of when he's going to leave us. And when he does, though, I will lose all the benefits and I won't really be able to afford, our lifestyle. Plus, I want to leave a legacy for my child, for my daughter. So that's a pretty strong why. I always tell buyers and sellers, you have to have a very strong why. Otherwise, you will never accomplish your goals. And so anyway, I said, look, thank God you got me because if you got any other broker, they would stick you in a restaurant. I'm not putting you in a restaurant. So I found a flooring business and I said, it's not about the industry. It's about the cash flow. She said, I would like to make 250,000 a year and I can put down 300. So I found I had a flooring business for sale. And I went to them. I said, look, I know you want more money down, but I got this wonderful person and I think you're really going to love her. She can afford to put down $300,000. 50, she's going to leave 50,000 for working capital, and we want her to buy the business and the real estate. The real estate was for sale too. And I said, no, no, no. And finally, I got them to say yes. It takes 10 no's to get 7 no's to get a yes. So I finally got them to say yes. She went in and she has doubled the business. But right away, she was making about even after she paid back the business was paying back the debt service, the seller financing, she was still making about 300,000, 350,000 a year. Now she grew the business and she's making $500,000 a year. And she's been in the business 5 years. I mean, that's extremely rewarding when I can help somebody accomplish their why, leave corporate America, especially close to retirement, and make more money than they've ever made before. I don't think it gets much better than that, does it?
No, that's transformational. That is fantastic. There's so much to unpack there. And by the way, she's probably having the best time of her life ever working, right? Doing all of that, having
Right.
her
And
family
she's
kind of
learned,
being.
yeah. And she's learned so many things. She's like, Michelle, I've never learned so much. And, the owner stayed on for a while and
Mhm.
she's made her payments. And she's like, oh, Michelle, I'm so glad I got you because if I didn't get you, what would I have done? Because so many brokers, they're order takers.
Mhm.
They're order takers. They're not problem solvers. They're not trying to do the best for the client. They're just trying to get a deal done.
Mhm.
And yes, I could have shoved her in a restaurant and she would have been miserable and she would have wasted her money.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, very well said. I want to touch on two little thoughts here, and the
Uh huh.
first one is the internal motivations. Right, there's external motivations for folks that are such as retire and have some money here and be but there's the internal stuff like legacy,
Right.
like family, like my employees and my clients
Right.
and taking care of them, and it's not just the surface stuff. It's going below and say, how do we problem solve to structure this in a way to find a buyer who you're going to believe in as well, who are going to take care of your folks the best they can, right, given the circumstances, and still give you a fair price. Is that a fair summary of that first part?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And sometimes, Brett, it truly is like searching for a needle in a haystack to find that right marriage. Because let me tell you something. I've had sellers walk away and say, I don't like that buyer. I'm not going to sell to them. I've had buyers walk in and say, place is a dump. And they said it right in front of the seller. And I'm like kicking the buyer. So, that's why we do so much education on the buy side, sell side before we even set up meetings. Like, look, if you don't like something, let's not insult the seller. Let's just keep it to ourselves. You can tell me about it later. Yep.
Very well said. And the second part of that is helping people get freedom from corporate America, right? The one thing we can't get back, Michelle, and let me know what you think, is time, right? We can make and break money, we can make and break businesses, let's say, right? But we can't get back time, and that time piece also means the time to actually leave a legacy, right? So I love that she for 30 years was in corporate America, and then now she made this change, and
Right.
she's going like, my husband has health challenges and I also want to be able to leave this legacy for our kids or daughter, right?
Yep.
And by being an entrepreneur and taking a risk here and going out for something new.
Yep.
And so she traded her time and energy that was being traded for corporate America for this legacy. Any thoughts there on the aspect of
Yeah,
time?
she sure did. And I tell you, it was a big risk on her part. And that's why I always say the why has to be so strong, because everybody was telling her, "Oh, that's crazy. That's insane. Why would you do that? You're so close to retirement." And it was a big risk because that was her entire savings. And if it didn't work out, she wouldn't have any money left. So it was a huge, huge, huge risk. But she is so thankful that she did it, because those 30 years in corporate America, she said, "Michelle, I have nothing to show for it. There's nothing to show for it. I have no equity in anything." And that's why I got out. I was at Xerox for a year. And I just, thank goodness that I didn't stay at Xerox much longer than that. And I love Xerox. It's a great corporation. I don't want to say anything negative about them. But she's so happy now because she is trading time, spending time and her money for equity and building a legacy and leaving behind something really valuable. And it's just more than just money, right? For her daughter to inherit.
So well said. Yeah, transformational. You truly are gifted. I can already tell. I've interviewed a lot of folks. No one quite like you on what you do. So this is really really neat. So now let's dive into some of the tactical. Okay, so
Okay, well,
so
before
some
we, can I give you one
yeah,
quick
sure.
story?
Go ahead, Michelle. Yeah.
Because you asked me about what's so rewarding. So those are
Mhm.
the two things on buy side, sell side. Let me give you
Mhm.
one more story for your listeners.
Sure.
What's also very rewarding is saving a business that's about to go under. Because when businesses go under, not only do they lose their business assets, but they usually lose their family assets too. So I had a graphics company that called me a few years ago. They had husband, wife, works in their garage, started a business years ago, works out of their garage, converted the garage to an office, one employee. They told their one employee that they're going to sell or close their doors. So what do you think that one employee is going to do? Find a job, right? So he called me up and I could tell that he was panicking. And, I typically don't take the phone call. I don't always take phone calls, I'm really, really busy. That day, my assistant said, "Michelle, this graphics company is on the phone in Houston. I think you might want to take the call." I'm like, "No, I can't. I got to do this and this." And I'm like, "You know what? Something just told me to take that call." So I said, "Okay." I think it was God that told me to take that call. So I took the call, and he started talking to me about the business. And he said, "Look, we built this great business, but my wife and I are working 14 hours a day. We have one employee. We're about to get a divorce. We've mortgaged our home and we just can't do it anymore. We can't work this many hours. We're at our wits' end." And he kept talking. And I said, "Well, what do you think the big issue is?" And he said, "The issue is that I don't have the business acumen to grow my company to the next level. I don't have the business acumen. I That's why I need to sell." And I said, "Well, tell me a little bit more." And then he says, "Our quality is so good, it's unparalleled in the industry, that we are turning down 6,000 clients a year." And when he said that, I went ding, 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 because that's the opposite problem of most companies. Most companies don't have enough clients. They need to do more marketing. So I said, "Listen, Stephen," I said, "here's the deal. We're not putting your business on the market because your business is not sellable. Because if we take you guys out, there is no business." And he said, "Well, what are we going to do?" And I says, "I'm going to do my due diligence, but I'm pretty sure I'm going to partner with you and I'm going to save your business." And I did. And I put up, I invested money, my time, my energy, my effort. I took them out of that garage, leased a 6,500 square foot building, hired 20, 25 employees. They never broke a million before. Now they're way over a million. Now they're doing millions. Hired, a chief operating officer, etc. And Steven now comes up with these brilliant, brilliant ideas, because he really is brilliant. Him and his wife are both brilliant. And I said, "Steven, I thought you didn't have the business acumen to grow your company." And he's like, "Well, Michelle, I've learned a lot." I said, "No, Steven, you've always had it. It's always been there. But when you're in the fog, it's foggy. When you're in the middle of the chaos, everything is chaotic and it's hard to see the forest through the trees, right? You need an outsider's perspective to read the label." So anyway, That's a great story because at my birthday party, him and his wife spoke on my behalf and had tears in their eyes because they said not only did Michelle save a business, she saved a marriage.
Mine is blown, and I'm sure our listeners are too, Michelle, because that is truly transformational for the family, for the business, for the employees. And yeah, and in a sense, you helped him get freedom from the business
Right.
without having to kill his business or get or leave the business, right? From the day to day of how small it was and how he couldn't get out of his own way, and he's brilliant, but at the same time, business acumen and marketing and scaling, he need help, right? And so you
Right.
helped him scale that. Now he gets freedom from being in the business, can work on the business, create more ideas, grow it even more,
Right.
and fair summary.
Fair summary. And it's kind of like a computer, right? If you have all the programs open, what happens? Your
It starts to
computer
bog
really
down.
slows down, and eventually dies.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with a business owner. You got to close some of those loops, and you got to work on your business, not in your business, and you got to hire your strengths. I'm sorry, hire your weaknesses, focus on your strengths.
Beautiful. So well said. So let's talk about that. So because I think that's probably the number one thing for folks that are challenged is delegating, giving up control, right? Having these false beliefs that that no one's going to do it better than them or no one's going to care as much as them. And I'm reading a book called Mentor to Millions by Kevin Harrington, and it's actually had him on the show here. And
It's
one of the
funny
cool
that you mention that because he wrote the foreword to Exit Rich.
small
So,
small world, small
yes.
world, Michelle. And so part of what he says is, um, have a plan and 70 to 80% plan it and then go do it, right?
Mhm.
And I'm having to practice that every day because I mean, I have a small team and I'm having to give up even more and more and more, right? And I know I need to, but it's hard to get sucked back in. And I also hired coach and masterminds to help me get through all of it because it's not easy, especially I mean, we're creatures of habit, right? When
Right.
we're doing things one way, and we are stuck in that, that routine, we've got to get outside help. So you got to get people like Michelle to help coach, maybe even partner with you, right? And you got to get people. I love the way that Kevin Harrington and Mark Cuban and everyone does it on Shark Tank. They say, hey, look, if I'm going to invest in that, I've got to have ownership because it's not just hire me for one thing. So talk about ways that business owners can structure their businesses in a way that gets that buy-in from their team members, whether it be profit sharing, whether it be equity ownership, whether it be stock purchases. How do you help those that are 10 million and above structure it in a way to make this thing fly?
You mean with their employees?
Employees, partners, yourself, like what are the best ones doing to make sure that there's that buy-in and that ownership?
Yeah. So, when you mentioned that from the beginning, employees, something came to my brain automatically, and that's Jeff Hoffman, who was founder of Priceline, well, one of the founders of Priceline, and also founded the airport kiosk. He said the best way to get employee buy-in is to really figure out what employees want. And by doing that, it's not so much about the hourly rate or the salary, but it's what they really, it goes back to the wants, finding out what people want. And Jeff is probably the master at this. So when he interviews people, when he interviews prospective employees, he asks them all these questions and he gets down to the nitty gritty about what is that person's why. What is so important to them? And I remember his story he was telling me because he was on my podcast not that long ago, and we spoke on many stages together. Um, he said that he interviewed this gentleman that said, look, I just want to make enough money to buy my mom a house. So every employee has a different reason. They have a different, something different that motivates them. And so what he did with that employee, he says, okay, let's put that up on the wall. So he takes their why, whatever their motivating factor is, and puts that on a wall in the office. So the entire team is invested in making sure that everybody on the team gets what they want. And it's not even for him, it's for his mother. So everybody on that team is participating, working towards one common goal to help the employees get what they want, which also helps the company get what the company wants and needs.
It's so simple but so profound, right?
It's so
Zig Ziglar,
simple.
right? Help enough people get what they want, you can have everything you want.
Right.
So why aren't we, the people that are most important, which are our team members, employees, right, that are with us, if they don't know their why, or B, you don't know their why, or we're not sharing that why, right? Where's the inspiration coming from, right? It may be
Right.
coming from our own why, which is only small, but when you can help enough people get what they want and you
Right.
share that together, why can't we all grow and succeed? Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. And like I said, I think Jeff is a master of that. It sounds so simple, but it's much more complicated. And the problem is employers get stuck in their head and just doing everything that needs to be done that they don't really take the time to figure that out. But I mean, Jeff even asked one of his employees, oh, he found out that one of his employees needed his cleaning picked up. Jeff went and picked up his cleaning. This is a multi millionaire that sold companies for millions, billions, So I think it's about that. And then the other answer I want to give you is I see so many consultants that go in and charge these ridiculous fees. And look, I don't want to say anything negative about consultants, but they're charging whether they get results or not. And they're charging, $10,000 a day or $100,000 a year or up, whether they get results or not. I would like to encourage some of them to do what I've been doing, and that's not charge these big, huge fees, but more importantly, take equity in the company. So you're vested in the company, you're vested in their success. But they don't want to do that because they want the big money. They don't want to just take equity, they don't want to share in the upside and share in the risk. They just want to share in the upside.
Yep. Very well said.
Does that answer
And
your question?
it totally does. That's a great answer. So let's move into the biggest frustration as it pertains to capital gains tax deferral. So, like we just closed the deal. It was a $2.6 million business sale. Couple partners, three total. Two of them didn't want
2.6
to.
million or billion?
2.6 million.
Okay.
Yeah, and the liability is about $600,000, and so the two of the sellers didn't want to sell the business. The other one did, so they ended up negotiating, or the two bought out on my client, and it was unique about it is he saved the 600,000 using our deferred sales trust, but then he was able to use the equity to go build another business, which is multifamily development, all
Mm.
tax deferred. So he had that flexibility. So it wasn't just the transaction, meaning, oh, defer the tax, right? But it was, oh, what does this lead into my next chapter of my life? And for him, it was like, hey, Brett, I'm in my mid 40s. I'm still young. I'm a high income earner. I've always had this dream of building. So in Tennessee, he's building 80 units. And he goes, oh, this is so cool because I just deferred the tax that I would have paid. Now I can move it into this next chapter and use those funds. I call it the go fund yourself, right?
Right.
Instead of GoFundMe or VC capital, you can literally use the funds to set your next business venture. So
Mm-hmm.
speak to not only just tax deferral challenges of how it could, hurt a deal or not make a deal work, but then the next chapter, right, which goes into the transformational part of, oh, what is this going to do for your next part of your legacy?
Right. So, it really does, Brett, go back to where the client is in the stage of their life, though, right? So, a lot of our clients are typically 60, 65, 70, 75, 80. We have one client right now that we're selling their business in between the 60 to $70 million range, and he's 80 years old. And he doesn't want another business. But it just goes back to what do they want to do. So we do work with a firm, like I talked about before, that one of the first things we do when we sit down and do seller strategy and we do the valuation, we do projections, we will also sit down and look at, okay, if we get you within this range, what are the capital gains going to be? What does that look like? I've had some clients say, don't bring me all cash, bring me so much up front and then we'll do seller financing. I've had others want to do a trust where the money goes in, where the proceeds of the sale goes into a trust, and at the first taxes, and they take money out as they need it. I have, like I said, a really good firm that I work with. that is pretty brilliant at allocating the purchase price, putting more towards goodwill, allocating more towards goodwill to try to reduce the taxes, and then they follow those taxes for 3 years forward. And they've been able to save my clients. I mean, the last client that they worked with, I think they saved them $1.8 million in taxes. If there's a real estate component and the owner wants to maybe 1031 that into another real estate producing property, we've done that before as well. So we also reach out to our resources, like I said, with the law firm, with the trust, and different things like that.
Yep, very well said. And likewise, it's all the stuff we do as well. We just have we found something that's really interesting. I think after the show, maybe we'll exchange notes on the different ways. In the meantime, though, I want to focus on the estate tax. You mentioned $60 to $80 million sale. In that one of the biggest challenges that people don't look at or aren't as focused on is the estate tax, which is anything above 22 million and you're married or 12 million and you're single that's inside your taxable estate. It's going to hit with a 40% death tax. Has nothing to do with the stepped up basis, okay? Right. And it has nothing to do with capital gains tax. It has everything to do with what's inside your taxable estate. So would you walk through perhaps some strategies or some thoughts when it comes to the estate tax for these ultra high net worth clients that you're serving?
That's when I turn it over to the accounting firm. The one thing that I've really learned in my industry is to try to shy away from giving legal advice and accounting advice. And that's why I bring on this M&A firm early on that specializes in M&A transactions. They do everything from the legal documentation to due diligence to closing to taxes, etc. And that's when I typically bring them in.
Yep, well said. And for our listeners, you can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and you can learn about how the Deferred Sales Trust can, literally in one transaction, move not only defer your capital gains tax, but move it all outside your taxable estate without having to give it all away to charity, which is cool. But most of our clients are charitable, Michelle. They're just not 100% charitable. So we have a cool, a neat way of doing that. That being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
I am, and I would love to have you on my show to talk about your strategies. So we'll make sure
Let's
that
go.
happens.
It would be my honor. So let's see. What is some of the best advice you've ever received?
Best advice I've ever received. Lots of advice. Your past doesn't define you. Your past doesn't define you. Your network equals your net worth. You want to be rich, hang around rich people. You want to be successful, hang around successful people. You want to be broke, hang around broke people.
Beautiful. Knowing what you know now, if you go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget that you would make sure you would do?
Start earlier. Not marry my first husband and start earlier.
I like the honesty. Start earlier on the business and maybe wait a little bit longer before you get married, right?
I'll start early. I mean, Xerox was a great learning experience because they have the best training in the world. Mm-hmm. So that was a great learning experience. I wouldn't change that, but I think I would start hiring mentors earlier. Mm-hmm. Start businesses earlier. I think that's what I would change.
Beautiful. What's the one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Oh my gosh. Well, I recommend Exit Rich.
Mm-hmm. So do I now. I haven't even read it and I recommend
anybody
it.
that wants to build a sustainable, scalable business. Mm-hmm. But there's so many books out there and it depends upon what you're struggling with. One book that I really like, which is by Keller Williams called The One Thing, mm-hmm. is really great for business owners because entrepreneurs have that shiny penny syndrome where they go, oh, let's chase this rabbit. Oh, let's chase this rabbit. Oh, let's chase this rabbit. Well, The One Thing really focuses in what you should be doing right now. Mm-hmm. There's another book called Who. I forget what the author is, but if you're struggling with employees, if you're struggling with finding the right people, Who is one of the best books out there for that. I love Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. I love the entire series. I love Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. I love The Art of the Deal by Donald Trump, whether he's our president or not going forward.
Yeah, we're recording as of today, where it's all the votes are being counted, and it's not looking so good. Let's just say that for Mr. Donald Trump, so President Donald
Right.
Trump. So excellent. What are you curious about right now?
What am I curious about right now? What's going to happen going forward?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
COVID-19, yeah, the election changes everything. Yep.
COVID-19, the election. I really thought COVID-19 would go away after the election.
Mhm.
But I'm really curious about what's going to happen next,
Mhm. Yep.
if Trump doesn't get in office.
Likewise. Likewise. With that being said, this is our last question, and this is going to wrap it up because we're running out of time here. So, after all your success, Michelle, and all the people you've helped, and all the businesses you've sold, and businesses you've owned and operated, and being the business doctor, right? How do you stay centered in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to reach for new heights?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think the best way I say stay centered in my values is I have habits. And one of the biggest habits I have is before my feet hit the ground is to give gratitude. You know, um, show gratitude, pray for what I'm thankful for, and really have gratitude for everything and all the blessings in my life. I really teach that to my daughter to every night to pray for what she's thankful for. So I think that's a big way that I stay grounded. Um, is just by giving gratitude every day. As far as what was the second part of that question?
And then how do you stay encouraged? You accomplish so much, and then you're like,
Yeah,
what keeps you encouraged to go for that next big challenge?
I've always been so competitive. And I've always been like, I want more. I want to do more. I want to accomplish more. I want more, you know? And I've always just wanted to make sure that my life means something and that it's not for nothing. That I helped somebody, or I helped a business owner, or I saved a marriage, or I saved somebody's house, or, you know, I've always wanted my life to make an impact on someone else's life. And I wanted to make sure that my life is not just for nothing.
So well said. And with that, I want to first thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
And I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents you've been given to be a blessing to others and helping them create and preserve more wealth in their businesses and also in their family and their leadership. I mean, so much there that you added tremendous value for us, Michelle. And with that, I'll give you the last word and remind our listeners again where they can find you.
Sure. The last word, never give up. Never give up. Where there's a will, there's a way. No matter how bad it seems, there's somebody there to help lift you up and help support you and carry you through this pain. Um, things is This is temporary. The pandemic is temporary. Pretty soon it'll be a distant memory. This too shall pass. And
Beautiful.
where can they find me? They can find me at exitrichbook.com. Well, I would encourage everyone to go out and buy exitrichbook.com because number one, it is the blueprint, Steve Forbes says, if you want to build a sustainable, scalable, and sellable business. And Kevin Harrington said it's a must read. When your listeners go buy the book, they receive several bonuses if they go to exitrichbook.com. Number one, they get the digital download immediately. Number two, they get a free book membership into Exit Rich, and that has lots and lots of video training where I do deep dives into all the strategies and techniques about how to build your business to sell. Plus, I have document downloads. I have employee handbooks, organizational charts, due diligence checklist, sample LOIs, letter of intent, sample purchase agreement, sample closing documents. And they get access into Club CEOs for 30 days for free. And we do masterminds, hot seats, question Q&As to help build their business. One question, one answer could really change the trajectory of someone's business.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Make sure to go to extrarichbook.com and And also, if we can help anyone else who's selling highly appreciated business real estate, cryptocurrency, primary home, defer some capital gains tax, go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. And if you're a business professional listening to this, you're a business broker, financial advisor, luxury realtor, commercial real estate syndicator, go to experttaxsecrets.com to learn how the Deferred Sales Trust can grow your business. With that, everybody, we so appreciate you. Please rate, review, and subscribe. And until next time.